talk about the Phoenix Act. It's two things. One is legislation, an act that Wood and people who agree with her about this issue want to see enacted around the country that would increase the statute of limitations time for domestic violence and sexual assault crimes and give victims more time to bring that to authorities and launch either criminal prosecutions or sometimes civil lawsuits. That's one thing. The other thing is the Phoenix Act is a charitable corporation formed in California by Wood. It's mostly the second one we're going to talk about. But let's go back to that first one for a minute. And that is Wood's advocacy for changing the statute of limitations for sexual assault. And regardless of what happens with the second item, the corporation, it's a separate issue from whether that's a good thing or a bad thing to try to change the statute of limitations. I think it's a good thing. Everybody should be able to speak their mind on it. And it's not like the original statute of limitations for these issues was handed down on a stone tablet and should never be changed. It's always just policy decisions. There's a very good argument that the old statute of limitations didn't recognize some of the realities of sexual assault victims, and that changing the statute of limitations, not necessarily exactly like Wood would have it be, but nevertheless changing it is a more equitable balance between the rights of people who have experienced such assault and people who may be accused of it rightfully or wrongfully. It's always going to be a balance, and I think advocating for that, putting it in the public eye, that's a worthwhile thing. And in some cases, getting it changed was worthwhile because it just was too short, I think, to balance the equities. Everybody can have a different opinion on that. Now, that's separate from the Phoenix Act Corporation, and that's what we'll get into now. So the Phoenix Act Corporation was formed in April 2019 by Evan Rachel Wood, and it was eventually registered with the Office of the Attorney General Registry of Charitable Trust in California in August of 2020. And Wood is listed as the CEO, the CFO, the secretary. She's the person. He's also a registered agent. I'm not going to get into that because that's probably a formality. Wood is the person listed as occupying the positions involved in the company. Nothing wrong with that. Let's look at what she said the purpose would be. Wood said the purpose of the organization, it's a nonprofit corporation organized exclusively for charitable purposes to provide support to victims of domestic violence and to expand the rights for victims of domestic violence. They wanted to assemble a team and raise funds to support all victims of domestic violence. They would work on supporting legislation to be passed that extends the statute of limitations for domestic violence incidents in 50 states. When Wood was filing for her tax-exempt status, she also reported the expectations, financial goals for the organization, and they didn't want to have to report at a highly extensive level. So they forecasted revenues less than $50,000 for all the years that we're going to be looking at. So through 2019 through 2022, the organization was not expected to receive more than $50,000 of revenue in any given year. And based on what was reported later, that has turned out to be true. Numbers higher than that can change the status of the thing and how much information you have to give, etc. But they did give a pro forma to show that they didn't expect this to be more than $50,000 a year. So if you're going to have less than $50,000 a year flowing through this organization, you're not going to be having full-time employees, or at least more than one, I would think, much of a staff, or really a whole lot of activities that you can do through an organization on a national level at this kind of money, at this level of donations. But that's what she reported. So does this corporation, the Phoenix Act, the charitable group, does it have something to do with this lawsuit with Manson and Wood? According to Manson, it does. In his complaint, his lawsuit that he filed, he notes that around this time, Wood and Gore conspired about how Wood and others could accuse Warner of abuse. Days before her testimony to the California State Senate, Wood incorporated the Phoenix Act. She serves as CEO, CFO, and corporate secretary, and Gore has been employed by the Phoenix Act since approximately 2019. Wood alleges that Gore wrote in a notebook that her goal of being involved with the Phoenix Act was to quote-unquote make money. Now, let me make an aside there. I realize that's an allegation he's making in the complaint, and it can on the surface look bad. There is nothing wrong with being in a nonprofit organization as an employee and being compensated for your time, being paid for that. I know a lot of people who make pretty good money in nonprofits and a lot of people who barely eke out a living, but people who put their time and energy into charitable efforts that people support with their money, they deserve to be paid too. So if that's what she's talking about here, I don't hold that against her. I know that's not how Manson's putting it, but just keep it in perspective, I guess, is what I would say. especially when you see the financials of this organization. So Manson also notes the Phoenix Act engaged in fundraising, went through GoFundMe. I think it had some other sources as well, where it did solicit money from people. Again, there's nothing wrong with that by itself. Manson notes, and I think this is easy to agree to, that the Phoenix Act and those acting on its behalf advertised and promoted it as being affiliated with Wood, including in connection with fundraising. I've seen materials that suggest that, certainly. They note that the Phoenix Act itself describes itself as a survivor-led nonprofit created by Evan Rachel Wood, and the documents support that works to end the cycle of domestic violence. Then Manson alleges, whether it's true or not, that's beside the point of the fact that it's alleged in his lawsuit, that Gore used the Phoenix Act in connection with a film project to recruit, coordinate, and pressure women who had been linked to Warner to make false accusations of abuse against him. And she did it with Wood's assistance and or acquiescence. Manson notes messages allegedly sent by Gore to people touting her affiliation with the Phoenix Act to try and bring them into the fold of potentially revealing accusations against Manson. Whether true or not, I know people disagree, but the point is, he's saying that she did this under the rubric of the Phoenix Act. Gore used her proximity to Wood to attract and pressure potential accusers. She bragged to them that she was close with Wood and was acting on behalf of the Phoenix Act, and claimed that they were organizing through the Phoenix Act Coalition, etc. So the whole point of this discussion about what's in the lawsuit is that obviously there's some things revealed about the Phoenix Act Corporation that Manson supporters want to know more about and want other people to know about. And the idea is this just idle gossip? What's the point? How does it have to do with the lawsuit? How it goes down the line, we'll have to see. First of all, I don't have yet any evidence submitted in front of the court that would make this relevant to the anti-SLAPP motion. So understand that. This is kind of like on the level with this FBI letter thing, to how it connects to the lawsuit through evidence. But how it connects to the lawsuit through allegations seems to me plain with what Manson has said here. Again, agree with him or disagree with him, he's brought this act in as a vehicle that Wood and Gore allegedly used to further the alleged schemes against him. So it's kind of in play what's going on with this corporation that they have, what it does, and how things are with it. So let's get into that. The Phoenix Act Company is successful in getting its exempt letter and moves forward, I guess, with the advocacy that it says it's going to do. According to Manson, Gore was employed by the act. I don't know that for a fact, but he alleges that. It also produced other people allegedly affiliated with it, including an executive director who was going to do great things with the Phoenix Act, promoting it as the executive director, still listed as that. Also a communications liaison or something like that. So 2 to 3 people saying they're working with the Phoenix Act and doing things for it. And the 2 that their names are out there that are affiliated with the company outside of Gore are in Florida. So what are they doing, having to do with this company that's in California? How does Wood know them? She formed this company. I don't know the answer to that. However, it is true that Manson says that Gore is a resident of Florida. Maybe it's people she knew. There's nothing wrong with that in and of itself if that's true. Some people have pointed out that the resumes of the 2 people saying they're working with the Phoenix Act are extremely thin, maybe very thin for the title involved. But you know what? If it's an organization that doesn't have a lot of money, giving out a title like that for somebody who's looking to build experience, again, nothing necessarily wrong with that. But you need to look and see, well, okay, what did all these people do? Because Wood said there's not going to be a lot of money in this thing. It's going to be less than $50,000 a year. So what are we up to? There was some social media generated, going into 2020, but not a lot after that. And financial documents that Wood discloses say that the organization received less than $3,000 in donations in 2020 and less than $8,000 of donations in 2021. Now, how are you going to run a multi-member nationwide advocacy group on basically $10,000 over 2 years? What's up with that? That's not a lot. Again, people try to set up organizations. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. That's not nefarious in itself, but this is a low level of money. I'm surprised by that. I thought that given that she was behind it, either she would put more money into it or she would have friends who would, and this thing would have some money, especially with people saying that they work for it. they got to get paid, right? Well, they don't have to. It could just be doing it for free, and maybe that's how it was, and maybe that's why there's doesn't appear to be much effort put into this thing over the last couple of years, at least from what you can see on the outside. Anyway, this organization, however it starts off, Phoenix rising from the ashes, it appears to reach cruising altitude pretty quickly because the donations are very low. And then something bizarre happens. On February 8th, 2022, Evan Rachel Wood writes to the Registry of Charitable Trust and notifies them that she has elected, I guess as all the supreme authorities of this organization, voted as the corporation's board of directors to wind up and dissolve the Phoenix Act Corporation. There be no remaining assets of the corporation. Everything is distributed. Everything is paid. We've netted this out to zero. So they took the cash they had, they split it in two and gave it out to two other charitable organizations. And so she's shutting down the Phoenix Act, Inc. I haven't seen the formal dissolution at the Secretary of State's office in California, but here it looks like that's just a mere formality at this point, that she has requested in writing to get rid of the Phoenix Act. So this nonprofit organization is started up and it runs a little bit for a period of time, and then it reaches a very low level of operations, and then she shuts it down. And why would she shut it down at this point? We don't know the answer to that. I thought this was going to be the organization that was used as the shell for the efforts to push the potentially, and I think commendable, effort to at least think about, revisit, and possibly change statute of limitations involving sexual assault. This was the vehicle for that, right? It was going to receive donations. It was going to engage in advocacy and put money where it could do the most good. But now it's just being shut down. What happened there? We don't know the answer to that. Manson's team, who incredibly skilled, I think, the more I watch this, the more I think that, in their declaration from the attorney who spoke with the FBI agent involving the alleged FBI letter, noted that the two people whose names were associated with the Phoenix Act had in fact spoken to the FBI. But I don't have any idea what that is or whether there's truth behind it. But that was a little teaser into maybe there's an issue with the Phoenix Act Corporation. And then here we see this where Evan Rachel Wood just shuts it down herself. Andrea Burkhardt had tweeted out some things on this where she had checked records, and I followed up on that and found what I'm showing here. She also checked some other states and did not see that this was transitioned to some other state, nor could I see a reason why you would be doing that. It was put where it was put for a reason, right? And I haven't seen anything from the defense side to explain why this happened. Nobody has, to my knowledge, or on their website or whatever, notified anybody that, hey, we're shutting down this charitable organization and we're not going to have that anymore. In fact, from what I saw this morning, the GoFundMe links that go somewhere under the name of this thing are still active. So what's happening with this, we don't know. In the court of public opinion, I think it looks bad for the defendants, obviously. In the case, it's not yet there because nobody's put it there yet. So, there's the things that everybody thinks, then there's some actual evidence that's outside the case, and then you get inside the case and what will be in front of the judge. This isn't there yet. I think it is in the ring outside of that, relevant to people who are thinking about the case, because it's another question of, okay, what went on here? What is happening here? And we don't know the answer to it. So I personally am not going to think that it has a gigantic impact on the case yet, because that would be pure speculation. But I don't have any idea what this is about. Was there a bad actor involved here and Wood decided this isn't worth my time and effort to continue? Was it a decision she made to focus her efforts somewhere else? She's going to have to say on that. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of do hope that Manson gets a targeted discovery plan from the judge for the anti-SLAPP motions, and for two reasons. And one is it allows the merit of his claims to be addressed to a reasonably fair degree. And secondly, the defendants are going to stay in this case even if they get the anti-SLAPP orders they want from the judge. This case doesn't all the way go away, so they're going to have to do discovery anyway. I agree that you shouldn't be involved in a bunch of discovery before an anti-SLAPP motion typically, or else it kind of gets rid of a lot of what's supposed to be good about the anti-SLAPP motion. But in the case where the defendants only ask for part of the case to be extinguished, you're going to have discovery later. So to me, that reduces the burden they're going to have, because they're going to have to participate anyway. And especially if you don't allow fishing expedition, but maybe targeted discovery to the matters raised by the defendants themselves in anti-SLAPP motions, is it unfair to allow Manson to seek a targeted level of discovery that addresses the things that the defendants brought up? Because maybe Manson comes up with the evidence to get this case to a level where it continues, and maybe he doesn't. But if he has the opportunity to at least explore just the things the defendants brought out, and he fails, say, it's harder to say, well, he's railroaded by the system. This was a technicality. Oh my God, this is unfair. And if he succeeds, then it will at least be probably, unless they do a protective order, visible to the public where Manson's coming from and what evidence gets him, to the next stage of this case. In this case, I think more than many has just so many bizarre angles and twists that it has already exposed in it. Certainly more coming. It is, to me, beyond clear that both sets of attorneys, the plaintiff and the defendant, are working overtime to prepare evidence to support the positions that they're going to have, which are, by the way, even much less the evidence isn't fully visible to us that they think they have, not even how they're really going to push this case forward and the angles that they will show are most important once they're past these early motions. I don't think they've fully revealed that yet. These guys are trying to play chess with each other. They're doing it in a room that we only get to peek in every once in a while. We don't know what the strategy is going to be. But we just got done with this FBI letter, and then there's this other law enforcement letter, and there's this and there's that, and now we see the Phoenix Act itself is being dissolved by Wood. It's just a curious level of activities going on. How does it all come together? There's a lot of thoughts on that, a lot of comments online, but these are the documents I have, and I wanted to share them with everybody, and at least where I see where this sits currently. Thanks, bye.